As you can see, the Coptic Christians put their crosses as their hereafter. So you have the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. These temples weren't built in just random areas. They're built there on purpose, whether it's energy lines, whether it's the tree of life symbol. You probably see it on a lot of hippie girls' wrists as a tattoo, or, it's kind of a sacred geometry symbol. It's actually here. So right up there above my left shoulder, the hieroglyphs of what looks like to be a plane, a helicopter, a UFO. I'm in Abydos. It's about a 3-hour drive up from Luxor, so I hired a car to get out here. It's a little off the beaten path, but one of the oldest temples around. A lot of it was rebuilt like a lot of parts of Egypt, but a lot of this is from the Old Kingdom. I think this is probably a little newer, but as you see here, there's offering of incense to the god, to the goddess, I should say. And one of the ways you can tell it's incense, they see the nostrils are bigger when there's offering set. At least that's what I've heard. Sometimes, I'm not sure if that's correct, but sometimes they'll damage the nose if they don't like the king. Like a later king will damage the carving of the nose, so they can't inhale any of the offerings. You'll see a lot of destruction of the face and the hands. Destruction of the face because they don't like that. They don't like that pharaoh or king or maybe even God. But also the hands, so they can't take the offerings or give the offerings. These kind of engravings always kind of look like electric to me. Apparently, this symbol is a pretty common symbol you'll see in hieroglyphics with the lines crossing. It's supposed to be the I think it's Osiris's backbone, his spine. Doesn't look like that way to me. A lot of times, sometimes it could even be flowers in this shape, but I believe this is the actual spine. And then the 2 feathers on top, which was the 2 feathers of a powerful king. You can see the faces are etched out, and then you notice a snake in front of the head there, the headdress. Snake being, the serpent being part of one of the older kings, one of the pre-Egyptian gods. This is one of the temples. I see a lot of snake engravings in the hieroglyphics, so I'll show that to you here, kind of behind me. See a lot of snakes. But they wore them from the head to protect them. I think it more represents the protection of knowledge or actual knowledge or enlightenment, but a lot of the Egyptologists say it's just to protect them. Now this behind me is, you see the cow god. I believe that's Hathor, although sometimes gods are reincorporated in later cultures, the names change, sometimes gods combine. So I believe this is Hathor, which was a cow god, and then you see the horns, and in the middle is the sun disk for Ra, the sun. So probably a combination of two gods there. I'm not an Egyptologist, so do your own research. But if you notice the necklace around the cow's neck, I believe that is Hathor, because it's the female face with cow ears. So the cow was kind of one of the first gods. Represents a lot of things like fertility, abundance, and many more. Abydos is one of the important sites for Egypt just because it's so old and it's preserved so well. It's in the middle of the desert. It's out in the middle of nowhere. Like I said, it's a far drive from Luxor, 2-3 hours. So it's important because a lot of pharaohs were mummified here. So I think it's also important because the Temple for Seti I is here as well. I think a lot of the old kingdom, a lot of it was rebuilt, but a lot of it from the old kingdom, which is great because that's, one of the oldest periods of Egypt. You can see the animal skirt. You don't see that too often, but with the tail, you do see a tail on a lot of the kings, but the animal skirt kind of being show of power. See the lotus flower here. Then over here you see the ibis head, which would be Thoth, giving the Ankh, the representation, the symbol of life and also Egypt, to the pharaoh. To the king, I should say. You can also see the pharaoh hair with the ram horns above the ears. You'll see that a lot. The ram is usually a representation of Ramses II, but I don't know if that's Ramses II there.
And we have the upper line, the blue line, sky. The ceiling, we have different names. In Seti is written here by the stars. I would say my spirit will be on the sky like a golden star, like my ancestors. So after his death, we can find the star on the ceiling.
So you see the stars on the roof represent the sky, and then also the cartouche of Seti. Because when he died, he wanted to be in the stars. He believed he went up with the stars. So a lot of astrological kind of connections with the directions of the temples, but also kind of the gods believe they went there. Even in Saqqara, up near Cairo, you have a statue of King Dozier kind of leaned back, looking at the star Polaris.
But here, where I want to show you the list of the kings. Closer, please. List of.
So typically, as you see behind me, there's a guy. So typically in some of these tombs, they'll just have a gate. And if you want someone to push open the gate, maybe there'll be a tiny rope or string. You can push it open yourself, but usually you have to get a guy, and then he's gonna want some type of tip. So let's kind of see how that works. And I'll keep the video recording. They try to stay out of the camera for certain reasons because of tourist police, but let's see how that goes. As you can see, the Coptic Christians put their crosses as their hereafter. So you have the ancient Egyptian hieroglyphics. You see the bark, the sacrificial boat. But then you also see much later, 400 to 500 AD, the Coptic Christians were using this as a church. So certain areas, these temples weren't built in just random areas. They're built there on purpose, whether it's energy lines, whether it's where they've heard thousands of years before them that this was a sacred area, and then every church after builds over. And also they built these huge structures that are easy to use. But the Egyptians also built these huge structures here for a reason, whether it's aligned with certain stars, directions, the sun, astronomical. But yeah, definitely this wasn't random. They put these places in a position for a reason, and then, you'd build on top. A lot of old churches in Europe, a lot of places in Egypt, old temples in Greece and Turkey. You see that they keep building on top of each other. They might shift a bit, and I think that's when the stars are shifting over thousands of years. They might shift the direction of the entrance, for example. Graham Hancock talks a lot about this, but the Coptic Christians came in here, so a holy place is a holy place, right? It's a holy place for a reason. So the location for all my business students, my marketing students. So it's a special area that every religion after stays in the same area. Maybe they're drawn here naturally, or maybe it's thought out because through the stars and why it should be here. Oh, I see.
This is Mumia Osiris, monsieur.
Huh?
Yes, Mumia Osiris. Yes, Mumia Osiris.
Osiris.
Yes.
It's Osiris, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, okay, monsieur. Yes, thank you.
Go through this way is the Osirion. That's what I originally wanted to come here for, where I could overlook up top, but I want to go down the bottom. Uncharted X goes there a lot, hence why I want to come here because of his channel talking about it. But we'll see if we can. It doesn't look like we'll be able to, but maybe we could bribe somebody. So here's the Osirion. It's directly behind the temple, which is mainly for Seti I, which is about 1300 BC. This is much older. In fact, that's why you can't get in here, the Osirion. Basically, it's still kind of a mystery, and they're doing like 3D scans of it, and they're trying to figure it out, but it's got to be much older. And it's dug into the ground, which is usually from older times of Egypt. They would, start burying it, burying the pharaohs or tombs or sarcophagus, and then building the pyramids on top of it. So this is interesting. They found it, nothing on top, dug in, and it's these huge multi-ton stones. I don't know, huge stones that are hard to lift, and they're pushed up above. Thought there'd be a guy here that I could pay off, but it doesn't look like it. So I lied. I saw on the plaque there that the United States, like some organizations doing 3D scans here. So I told the guy, oh, I've been here before, I work with them. He says, oh, you have to pay $1,000 in Cairo. I said, we could work a deal. And he kind of was like, no. So usually anything can be seen in Egypt if you have enough money. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like here you can. Yeah, I thought he would come back, but I was gonna try to offer him maybe $100. I don't have much money on me, and I got another temple to go to today, but I really want to get down there. It was flooded with water, and they had these like chambers around where they think that all the pharaohs were possibly buried. It was like, this is old kingdom, one early time. So, man, disappointed that cop's walking away. I thought like I could bribe him, but I know I need to make fake documents next time. But no, very serious. They don't want you down there. I guess you have to pay like $1,000. So that's why you see these Uncharted X, Billy Carson, all these guys. They do group tours because then it's not, they spread out the price amongst a bunch of people. But when you're a solo traveler, you kind of eat that cost yourself. And $1,000, I don't know if it'd be worth it for me to pay that. But maybe we got to get a group together. Anybody into this kind of stuff, reach out, or we could join another group. But yeah, I'm always against group. When I first traveled to China, I was younger. It was one of like the second country I've ever been to. I paid $2,000 for a 2-week tour guide. It was great. Got to sleep on the Great Wall of China, drink a beer in the morning with the sunrise, try a lot of stuff. But you're following a huge group, and you can't just get lost and like kind of just like wander by yourself. When you're by yourself, you kind of just think. I feel kind of spiritual and kind of connected when I'm in different locations just by myself. But when I'm being rushed by a guide or people in my ear, I tend to, kind of just like get lost, and like then I leave the place and I go, man, I feel like I wasn't even there. So that's why I like solo travel. And ever since China, I kind of been against it. But in Egypt, you kind of got to, unfortunately. I'm doing like most of it solo, but I have done tour guides here and there, but it's Egypt. Now, the tree of life symbol, you've probably seen on a lot of hippie girls' wrists as a tattoo, or, it's kind of a sacred geometry symbol. It's actually here. I think it's the only time in Egypt you actually see it. Usually it's depicted as a tree, the tree of life, like eucalyptus tree, as I showed you inside, and also at Karnak. But this one is actually the circle, kind of geometric. It's a bunch of circles kind of overlapped, and it creates leaves, and almost we call it the tree of life. So it's here. Now I've heard it was laser engraved, and I also heard from Uncharted X that's false. That's actually not engraved in the stone, so it's some type of paint or marking or ink. Very interesting that it's here, this ancient site. It's down there. They dug this below and it's there. I don't think it's very symmetrical. It kind of seems like graffiti to me, but it is there. Ephesus, you see kind of this stuff too. Like you see like beautiful, like organized, symmetric patterns of flowers and designs. But then you also sometimes see like random, especially like the later periods, the Christian period too, you see mathematics, like almost like pizza shapes, where there's like a circle with all the triangles cut in it. You can tell it's a mathematical symbol that they're doing, sacred geometry, math, they're learning how to like divide stuff up, who knows, how to plot land, how to take inventory. But the fact that this is so old, this is 1200, this is the Temple of Seti behind me of Abydos, around 1200, 1300 BC, and they dug this. It's got to be way older and way more impressive with the stones, and also has water below. So there's still tons of mystery here and tons of research that needs to be done. I like them to drain out this water, but it shows that, think about it, you walk in there, there's the water glistening on the walls. Check out Uncharted X, he has a lot of great videos of that. The acoustics just really brought this really spiritual kind of place, really set the tone. So really cool place. But really want to go down there. So you see the police officer behind me with the machine gun. I really worked him. I really tried. He thought about it, but he said it's $1,000 in Cairo, so you should do it in a group so it's not so expensive. And I said, come on, man, I'll give you $100, and which I don't really have. I think I have 80. But he said there's a priest here watching, and that he'll get arrested if he does it. So don't want him to get arrested, so we'll do that. But I could never hurts to try. I heard I heard in Egypt you could get anywhere with some bribery, but apparently this is so important that there's, you know, it's so new. It's just like they just found the pyramids, right? So not able to get in here. And as my guide was saying, that, you know, Osiris is down here, and who's over there? Osiris and
Yes.
Osiris.
$1,000.
Osiris and
This here room Taba.
Mentotapa. I can't pronounce it like usual, but $1,000 to go down into, you got to go to Cairo. So helps to be in a big group. If you're by yourself, it's gonna be expensive. You also see that the bigger stones are in the middle, and then as it goes up, you see the smaller stones. So again, like Göbekli Tepe, when time passes, the stones get smaller and less. They have less endurance over time. They start to corrode away, but you also see there's these little kind of pieces that are like these joint fitting stones that kind of connect all the stones. I don't know if that was because there's gaps or they just run level, but it's interesting. You'll see, I don't know what you call them, but they're kind of these smaller stones fit between the bigger stones. This is interesting. You have, you know, the sled carrying the bark, the ceremonial boat I keep yakking about, but you kind of got these big, I don't know if that's supposed to represent Horus. The hawk doesn't always represent him, but this one's like a big fat, like they're carrying this big fat horse with a little baby right here. But they've got these huge kind of bodies, which is interesting. And then you have little birds coming up. There's little birds going up there. And then you have a fish and going into an antelope head, what looks like to be an antelope. This is interesting. Got a bull at the end of the ship, and he's got something going down, almost like water going down onto, kind of just stops here, stops nowhere. And they got the rope that's connected to the sled that this man is carrying. So there's a lot of, and then he's going to Thoth, my favorite god, the god of intelligence, I think. Hermes Trismegistus, all that kind of stuff is something I find very interesting and entertaining. And then he'll come to the pharaoh, and that's Seti with the female with the lion head and the sun disk Ra behind him. And it's always interesting. There's always this like duality. You got this kind of story, and then you got like a similar story on the other side with kind of changing. So like the same person, but they might be representation of a god. This one's more got different gods coming, and they're pulling a bunch of offerings of animals. Yeah, super cool. For all you ancient alien fans, we're gonna go see the helicopter hieroglyph. I had to get a guide to help me find it and show my picture because they don't usually show it. Not a lot of people are looking at it here. But yeah, check it out. So right up there above my left shoulder is the ancient aliens you see on History Channel. Was the hieroglyphs of what looks like to be a plane, a helicopter, a UFO. And so Ramses II had that plastered over. And then eventually, maybe during the Coptic era, 400, 500 years BC, they think maybe it fell, the plaster fell that Ramses II covered. And then that's shown. So it was to be hidden. But Ramses II did that a lot of places. He put his face in his hieroglyphic. He altered things. He was known to do that. Very big ego on that guy, but very cool to see this, you know, kind of see. Even the guy that showed it to me, I thought he was going to roll his eyes because they kind of hate that type of stuff, but he was like, helicopter. So, very cool. Behind me are the false doors. Typically, the false doors would be in a tomb, and it's a way for after the pharaohs died, they could maybe go to the afterlife and also come back to receive their offerings. At least that's the theory. Now, I'm not gonna claim to know a lot about Egyptian history because it's, 3,000 years, if not longer, 3,500 sometimes. Maybe 5,000 years old, maybe even longer than that. So I'm not an Egyptologist, but I will say some things stand out to me. I do know a little bit. You see the beetle inside the sun disk of Ra, which I haven't seen yet, so I think that's very interesting, because usually you just see the sun disk. There's a lot of theories on the beetle. Some people even say it looks like the top of the brain. They were doing surgery back then. They were performing medicine, surgeries in ancient times, so they probably have an idea what the brain looks. I don't know if I quite see it, but I've heard that if you look at the beetle, the scar beetle from the top, you'll see the brain. Now, the beetle is connected with the sun. Those beetles roll dung in a ball, kind of push it, and it gets to a bigger ball. So that's why you see it a lot with it holding the sun disk. I just never actually seen it within the sun disk, so I thought that was really cool. Typically you see the kind of, I would say, non-fit bodies, the kind of, you'll see like rolls of fat, as you see here, and also here. This is probably better. You see the rolls of fat right there. They're offerings, so they're probably lower, although they do kind of have the headdress and the beard. But you'll see that. But typically, like I say, 95% of the hieroglyphics, the bodies are fit. They're well ordered. I think that is the lower self. The real people, how they really looked, some of them. And then the higher self would be more thinner, less fat, more probably fasting for gods. Who knows? But I do think that's a lower, higher self, because every once in a while you see like a fat hieroglyphic, and then the rest, as you see up here above it. See, kind of the lower self, and then the higher self. It's interesting, the ankh in this one is wrapped around her necklace as she's giving it to the pharaoh, and then the holding of the hands. This is a symbol you'll see a lot in Egypt, on random road signs and stuff like that. Shows the embrace. On the ceilings, there's these holes. These would be the windows, right? To allow light to come in for the ceremonies and rituals, but also on certain times of the year, it would shine on certain, statues of deities' face. At least that's what I believe. In the 1500s and 1300s, 1200s in Europe, some of the churches do the same. Chartres, however you say it. I pronounce things horribly, but Chartes. I think it's France, but there's a bunch. There's some in, I think, Scotland, France, a lot in France, I think, of these old cathedrals. And the mathematics in them, the sacred geometry is insane, and you find that here as well. And it's a huge connection. I couldn't find any Egyptian people to talk about that without them kind of giving me a weird look. They really don't like connecting different societies or stuff like that. But I mean, obviously, like if it's in Europe way later and they were doing it in Egypt, it probably progressed there. The mystery schools of Egypt, I've heard no one talk about. Mystery schools of Egypt are very interesting. A lot of the great Greek philosophers apparently came down here, like Pythagoras. There's rumors that Jesus even came down, was initiated in Egypt, one of the mystery schools. We could do a video on that to really go in depth, because I definitely need to do more research on that. But also it's, look at this room. This room's really cool. Got more of the arch. First time I've seen an arch here in Abydos. But it's like there's these mystery schools, and Freemasonry, Sufi for the Muslim Sufis, Kabbalism, a lot of that stuff still exists, the esoteric meaning, and obviously there's all this symbolism, and to just think that this was just to be honored for the pharaohs and their gods, yes, but there's also a part of learning. I mean, look at these columns. They had this knowledge passed down from generation to generation, and also possibly a destruction story. You their story originates from the Great Flood in Luxor, right? This land popped out from the water of chaos. And you hear that in the Greeks and Christianity and the Old Testament, Judaism. So in Mexico and South America, Central America, you hear the same things with the Aztec Incas, Olmecs. You know, there's this great flood. There's usually a serpent, as we see here, some of the snakes represented. But there's these mystery schools. But I can't find... Maybe because they're mystery schools, no one talks about them because it's a mystery, but that's what I'm really into, the esoteric, sacred geometry, and mystery schools. The mystery initiations, and usually passing of knowledge. Not only passing of knowledge, but becoming a good person as well. So passing knowledge, but also teaching a skill, usually with how to cut stones, but also how to develop yourself as a stone as well. Take a rough stone, develop it into a clean, nice stone. Do the same as a human. Your body's rough, and you knock off the bad parts of the stone, and you know, you get a smooth stone. Wow, this room is cool. Get a smooth stone, right? So you're improving yourself, but you're also improving the stone you're working on by these secret techniques. So it'd go in these initiations, and I think it would take a long time, and you would kind of become, you know, wiser and learn all the secrets. But the secrets was knowledge. I think I heard Pythagoras was here like 20 years in his older age, and then went to Greece and then started the mystery school, the Pythagoras mystery schools of Greece, where they really harmonized music and mathematics, and we still don't know a lot about them. So I think all that originated here because the Greeks were come to Egypt to learn. Okay, that's it for Abydos, the Temple of Abydos. You have the Osirion in the back, which I wasn't able to get down to, but I got to see the famous helicopter hieroglyphic. So that was cool. Had to kind of pay a guy to show me where it was because I couldn't find it, like you know, like a couple bucks or whatever, $1. It is the time of Ramadan, so it's funny, there's a guy outside the gate here, a security guard, and he's reading the Quran, and I just thought, oh, it's so interesting. You have all these gods everywhere in this temple, and he's reading the Quran, and you have the Coptic Christians that were here as well. You know, the Greeks and Romans were all across Egypt with the Romans worshiping multiple gods and converting to Christianity. So, and the same for the Greeks. So this is Jay from Abydos. Next, we're headed to Dendera, and that's the next video. So we'll see you then, and love you guys, and hope you're all doing well, and thank you for following me around while I trip through history. That's my cheesy tagline. Bye.